Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching today. I am delighted to reopen the second season of the WanderWomen Podcast. And my guest today is the amazing Gitanjali Panappa. Gitanjali has a very unique take on things, and we'll be hearing a lot from her today. What I wanted to reiterate is that in this new season, I recommend that you listen to the very end. I am, from my first season, I have realized that the first few minutes sometimes, might not be the minutes that are the most valuable in the conversation. So that is my encouragement to you. And with that, Gitanjali, a very warm welcome to you today.
Thank you, Shivangi. I am so delighted to be here and so happy when you pinged and asked if we could have a conversation. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Gitanjali. Can you start us off with, tracking for us a little bit of your trajectory as a Wonder Woman, as a high-skilled immigrant woman, both in terms of your career and how it has developed, but also maybe personally. Where did you start? Where are you today?
Mm-hmm. So first thing, when I told my kids about this, they're like, "Are you going to get a cape? Is there going to be a WW on the cape?" And then my husband wanted to know if I'm going to get a big gold buckle. So we might have to do that. I thought a little bit about how to describe this, and I think trajectory, perhaps I would like to do by country, by geography, because I am perhaps a little bit like you, one of the few people who has actually lived and worked on most continents other than South America, and let's not count Antarctica. So I started my career in India. So I graduated like most people. I graduated with a master's degree and I completed that. I joined then a leading company in India, which no longer exists. And then with that, after 2 years, I got to move to the US. So it was the first time I had gone abroad. And so that was an incredible experience for me. And a couple of years in the US, I then got hired into Accenture. And with Accenture, I had the wonderful gift of a 10-year-long career with them, and it spanned several countries. So I got to fly all the way to Singapore. I had a few years in Singapore. I managed teams in Australia. I then moved to South Africa. And then I really thought about, you can't be global if you haven't worked in Europe. And EY came calling. And I had this, again, gift of being able to work for 10 years in the Swiss partnership of EY. And after 10 years now, I have established something called Negotiate Her. It's to support women and people of color with negotiating their careers. And I am a newly minted partner at a Danish firm called Implement Consulting Group. So I have all these countries in my journey.
Amazing, amazing. And that's often a great way to track, how your career develops. And you've had like long stints with, at least 2 different organizations, and you're continuously reinventing yourself. I'm curious, when you think back on your career, and it's probably been a couple of decades now, are there any turning points that you felt this is really changing the direction in which I thought I was going?
Absolutely. I can think of 2 immediately. So one was 2010-11, I think, and I was new to managing a large group of people. I had managed smaller teams, really big group of people, and I had a boss who was clearly also new to managing a group of people that were as large as this team. And I think between the 2 of us, I would assign responsibility more to that person. We didn't do such a great job. And we, in fact, did a very shoddy job. And in time, within a few months, that really did deteriorate. And I found taking on more responsibility, not just work-wise, but also emotionally for the 100 people that worked on this team. And I realized, is that really what I want to do? And is that what it means to be, in quotes, a boss? Or a supervisor or a line manager, or whichever word that you might use, in any context, it really got me thinking about leadership. And it was a pivotal point in my life to make some conscious decisions about how I will work with people, in what style, what do I want to be known for? I wanted to be conscious, not unconsciously just going into things and just letting it happen or wing it. I made a very deliberate decision. There will be no winging it. There will be depth. There will be thinking. There will probably be a little bit of research. There'll be an academic perspective. I wanted to bring all of this into my leadership style. So that's one, where it was going down a path that was just like snowballing into ugly. And then I had to pause and pull back in and make sense of it. And more recently, I am soon going to turn 50. And like you said, I've had big chunks of career. And I feel like I've earned the right now. I don't know why I say that, but I always feel like you have to earn it. I've earned the right now to not needing to do a big chunk. If I want to, I can. But now I can play a little bit more, be more playful. That doesn't mean that I'm not serious about what I do, but I can be more lighthearted about it. One of my longtime friends who used to be a client says, hold it lightly. I can hold that lightly and go into my work career for the next decade, but I can do it in a slightly different format. So this past couple of years have been pivotal again in terms of a change of direction, a change of perspective, earning a little bit more calm into the way I do it.
I love that you bring that up because I think that seems to be a theme with a lot of the Wonder Women that I speak with, on the podcast or just in life. And there is this whole idea of doing your best, being your best, and also perhaps a belief that unless you're working really hard, unless you are really giving your best, which usually is double what let's say a non I mean I hate to call that, but let's say if you are in the minority in whichever way, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be gender. It could be ways of thinking. It could be, your industry experience or whatever. Then you tend to like double up on things because you're trying to prove yourself. I love what you're saying in terms of that age milestone. I'm soon reaching that too, so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I'm wondering, Gitanjali, what was the belief or expectation that you had to really let go to go on that journey, what made it possible for you to go into this lightness, to be playful? And it's interesting that even in that, you are still integrating earning the right. Isn't that amazing that we say earning the right to be playful? So what is changing? What do you feel is the belief or expectation that you really had to shift?
It took a tremendous amount of mental weightlifting to wrest from the expectations that I think my parents had of me. So like you, I'm Indian. I grew up in India. I grew up in an environment of cousins, everybody being highly achieving, having a brother who's highly achieving, having a mother who's highly educated, cousins who are la, 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 la. So I took it as that's what I'm supposed to do. And till recently, which is kind of slightly embarrassing, well into my 40s, it mattered to me whether my father would recognize the brand I worked for. It mattered to me that my mother can tell her, people that she goes for a walk with in the evening that, yeah, Gitanjali is a partner in EY, right? And it took a lot of work for me to put that down and rest from it and say, again, going back to, I've earned the right to not care about that anymore. So for me, there was a huge leap over that process of getting, I don't want to say getting rid of, but feeling like I've addressed it, I've done it. I know this language sounds really strange, but I've paid my debt to that. And now I can go out into the world in a different format. And just to give my parents credit, it is because of them who I am, right? So I am driven, I am ambitious, I am also joyful and playful. I'm all of these things because of them. So it was more me than them. And it took a long time for me to work through the fact that I was doing this, not them.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? So you internalize some of those expectations, and maybe the parents then move on, but you have not moved on yourself. I
Correct.
mean, I see that so prominently, right? And many times, and you might say, I mean, in India, there is this, famous thing saying that every parent wants the child to become a lawyer or a doctor, or
Oh,
an
and an
engineer,
engineer.
an engineer or a doctor. Yeah, and if you haven't, then you have somehow failed. Like if you are pursuing the arts or something, that means you're not taking your life seriously. And it's fascinating that we leave our home countries and our culture, but the culture never leaves us, right? And it has different manifestations. This being such an interesting one, that the brand should be known by the people that your parents are associated with. Oh my God, like what a need, right? I mean, if I think about my children and they are now 13 and 18, I think such a thought will not touch them ever in their lives. I mean, it's quite extraordinary to see how generations and the fact that we are these high skilled immigrant women that we are. There are so many of these burdens we carry, and so many of them are invisible.
Mhm.
It's fascinating. Um, you said you're hardworking and ambitious, but was there a time, Gitanjali, in your life where you said, I really want to give this up, but you didn't? And I'm curious, like what was the time and then what kept you going?
So I don't know, Shivangi, if I would frame it as I give it up. I chose to do it differently. That's the way that I would say it, because um, I this is all very new. It's all very recent, and it's last 2 3 years. So it isn't something that is institutionalized in my brain as yet. I'm still working through it. What has been I want to say instrumental for me in a way was remeasuring my life
Mhm.
and not defining success by, you know, you need to have a dog, a car, a garage, 3.5 children, house, this kind of job, but really giving myself the breathing space to measure myself against those things. Yes, they are important to me as well, but may I please allow myself to add in a few more things? So, me, the way that I had structured my life was 100% about work. Is that healthy? Was that right? Different story. But it was. Factually, it was 100% about work. And now, in the past 2 3 years, I have added in the better, healthier things. Like I am, going to pottery painting classes with some of my friends. I didn't allow myself that. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't have done it. I should have, absolutely, but I chose not to. And I sometimes think that I had the trajectory I had because I had single minded focus.
Mhm.
And now it's okay to not. Now it's fine. It's all right for me to have these experiments. It's all right for me to have a broader range of interests.
So, Gitanjali, what made it okay now that was not okay a few years back?
Oh, several things, several things. One, I would say very clearly my own age/growth, introspection, reflection around this relationship that I have or had with reputation, brand, all of that. So there was a lot of internal work that I did around that. The other thing that really made it possible was the financial means to make it possible. I I had done smart decisions in my life, have been able to now head into the next decade of my life with a different focus towards money. Equally important is the support of my family around me. I mean, I have a bunch of champions and cheerleaders around me that are like, yep, you can do this. You can do whatever you want to be. And you can, so having that loud, explicit cheerleading has also been helpful.
That's great. That's phenomenal. I'm just wondering when you did that reinvention a few times. I mean, you explained that you have been to a few continents. If you were to speak to a younger version of yourself, right? And it doesn't need to be the very first time you came to the US and you were super young. It could be another time when you reinvented yourself, or even when you came to Europe. What would you like to tell that younger version of yourself, reflecting back from your vantage point of today?
I have, so there's one part of me, the biggest part of me actually, that wants to say, well done, and do it exactly the same way all over again. That hard work of getting up at 4 a.m. and driving to the airport to get there, that's what got you the rewards that you are, where you are a happy, content person now, right? So there's one part of me, the largest part of me, that wants to say, look at you. This is all going to work out well. And all of this hard work that you're putting in, the 16, 18 hours, the giving up for your holidays, all of this, awesome. Good for you. Do it. Don't talk about work-life balance because you clearly get energy from work. You are young. You have the physical energy, the brain power to do all of this. So use it. Live to that fullest potential that you can. So that's 80% of my brain. 80% of my brain wants to go back to the 23-year-old Gitanjali and say, keep going. This is the way. This is the path. There's nothing wrong in what you're doing. The little, like in Hindi, you say kida, the little insect in my brain. The insect in my brain wants to say, it's also okay to give up. And I want to say this quite specifically. I have an instance in my mind. I was in South Africa, and the experience was not going well for me at all in South Africa. It just wasn't. From day one, it was not a good work experience. It wasn't about the colleagues. It was the country. It was the drive. Everything was going wrong. But I persevered and I persevered and I persevered. I probably shouldn't have. I would like to tell my younger self, learn to evaluate a little faster, learn not to associate walking away from something as failure, associate it as a data point. That's all it is, a data point. It's not failure. I would like to have that wisdom as a younger person, make a decision slightly quicker than I have in the past, and to associate it with positivity.
You say that very, articulately. And I'm just wondering, did you have mentors? Did you have like people, who had that gift of experience with whom you could have those conversations? Because it's one thing to say that reflecting back, but at that, age and stage of your life, probably that is not the kind of discernment, that's not the muscle that you have developed personally, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I've had, when I was with Accenture, there was a formal concept of a career counselor. So you had somebody who had your back, somebody who understood what you were going through work-wise. I've had, over the years, not maybe when I was much younger, but as I grew older, I've had more who I call my Jedi council. They are my council of elders around me who sort of caution and give me a sense, give me maybe a new perspective. So that's helpful. I would say overall, I've never had to do this alone. Mostly, I've always had maybe, this council, this army behind me, helping me to live this life that I'm living. I don't think I've ever felt alone.
And did these people or the people from your Jedi Council, do you think they were informed with your challenges as a high school immigrant woman, or were these people that may not necessarily be aware of your particular challenges, as compared to just being a professional at EY or whatever?
So maybe early, I'm thinking of my 20s. My 20s, they were just, let's say, older people. People who were, in their, well, when I say older, that makes it sound bad, but maybe like 40s, like where,
Where we are today.
So, but I remember just there were smart people who were well advanced into their career than I had worked for 3, 4, 5 years, and they had worked for 15, 20. So there was the element of just life experience. By the time I got into my 30s, I think it related more to the work I was doing. So people who understood consulting, who understood what it meant to be a trusted advisor, what toll it takes on you. And then into my 40s is where I think this council, this Jedi council, began to have a little bit more flavor. I started having people who were just retiring from work, who brought that perspective in. Or I had people from an adjacent industry. I still have people who work in other places to bring that diversity of thought. So it's evolved, and it's been layered and built on since my 20s.
I mean, because one is your professional identity, and then is your identity as what I like to call a Wonder Woman. Speak to me, Gitanjali, about your latest project. What is keeping you really busy at the moment?
I have a pet actually, Shivangi, you are one of the people who inspired me for it. Last year, you and I, maybe it was the beginning of the year, I don't remember now. We spoke, and you have now written and published your book. So it is one of my pet projects now, is to write a book. I have a book project called Quiet Power. And I call it Quiet Power because I believe that women, people of color specifically, when we are living and working in areas, countries, teams where we are a minority, we have a power differential. And what we would, I believe, benefit from is understanding that we may not have the loud, explicit power, but we do have the quiet power. So my current project is writing that book down, is working on some pragmatic tools, tips, techniques of bringing that quiet power to play, and then also gathering stories from other people like us, who are women and men, who are people of color living and working in areas where they are minorities. So gathering their stories and their lived experiences of how they negotiate their careers.
That's fascinating. So when is the book coming out?
Excellent question. 2026.
Okay. Somewhere in 2026.
Somewhere in 2026.
Well, having gone on that journey myself, it took me a year longer than I thought I would. So let's see, how it's all about priorities and getting this right. Because the book writing project, and especially in this world of AI now, right? Where people are, I mean, I always am amazed when people say, "Oh, I wrote a book in a week." And I'm like, okay. But the thing is, for me, a book writing is never about the writing of the book, but who you become whilst you're writing the book. And of course, if you just wanted to create something and put out content in the world, you can do that very quickly today. But if you really want to go on that journey of reflecting, collecting those stories, articulating them in the way that they really transform people, it takes a long time to do it well. And I think that in some ways, I'm really happy that when I started the process, AI was not even around. And by the time I was ending actually the writing bit, the manuscript bit, because after that it takes many more months to bring it to life, it was actually not so prominent, and I believe that was a good thing. I think in today's world, it's going to become quite challenging for people to not, because people are using AI like an extended brain, and it becomes quite challenging then not to, go to your own personalized LLM and say, okay, what should I think about this? And scarily, people are even now asking AI to feel for them, right? And to empathize with them. I've been recently reading a book called How Your Customer's Brain is Changing Because of AI, So assuming that your reader is also a customer in some form, the way we write to them changes because they are now, extrapolating, using that as a way to not just think, but also feel.
I don't want to take you down a rabbit hole with me, but you can't see this, but I am currently reading this old school, printed out, hundreds of pages of AI and human behavior, how to augment, adopt, align, and adapt. And it's excellent read because it actually is a little bit touches upon slow thinking instead of fast thinking. So how can we actually have AI right now does fast thinking for us, and how can we as human beings leverage it? So augment, adopt, align, and adapt with slow thinking.
Yeah, and not easy to do, right? Because we live in such a fast moving world. Yeah, very challenging.
Yes.
Last question to you, Gitanjali. What's one piece of advice you'd like to give another Wonder Woman, who's standing at her own definition of a crossroads, whatever that might be?
I've thought about this one since you and I exchanged on this. I wanted to be I had like 10 things, you have like a checklist. You're like, okay, here's the 10 things that you need to do. And then I brought it down to top 3 things and I really worked on it. And you tell me how this sounds. So the piece of advice that I have is you are not alone. There is someone with a similar, may not be exact, a similar lived experience. And maybe there are people with not the similarity, but they have the empathy. So if you can stand up and believe that you are not alone, and these experiences do not have to be isolating, that these experiences that you are having every day can be the things that bring us together.
What a beautiful segue. Interestingly, and I was showing you this, right? And this
Yes.
is also sort of reflecting that you are in community and you're not alone.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about, how to bring some of these concepts because I really believe in the power of community, as you know, both for, a community-driven organization like Private Mentoring, but generally in life, with the, like you called it, the Jedi circle, I have this board of mentors and then
Yes.
this, elderly friends. If the word elderly is somehow bothering me, but anyways, people who have more life experience than me, and been there, done that. And I have now created something called as WanderWomen Circles. In fact, the first one will be launched in Zurich. It's going to be a small, intimate gathering, which is not a networking event. It is not an event where, you're going to get tips and tricks about how to be a Wonder Woman, but it's exactly what you mentioned, to share our stories, to share our experiences, to really closely listen to each other with that very piece of advice that you just mentioned, to know in our hearts and to believe that we are not alone. Because one thing is to read, and the other thing is to speak to people like you and me who believe in that, right? But multiple voices, multiple women speaking about their deepest truth in a psychologically safe space with absolutely no agenda and no objective, right? Apart from feeling that sense of belonging. That is sort of my vision of the circles. And starting with Zurich, but we'll go to many different cities. And I'm trying my best to do it in person, though I already have a lot of requests saying, I'd love to do this, and I'm not going to be in any of the cities. Can we do this online? Like, yes. I have to, this is the fast and the slow thinking, right? Online is easier for people. They come in and, but I always feel the quality of connection is going to be a little bit different. Not that I'm going to give up on that idea. I will, but I have to start with some of these physical ones. And those of you who are listening, just go and check out the wonderwomen.org/circles. And I'm really very excited for this. I have a great group of women who already signed up for this Friday. And then I want to bring it to many places. Yeah, Gitanjali, thank you so much. This has been very, very inspiring. Thanks for being so vulnerable and so open and sharing your journey as you've gone through it. And I'm super excited about your book because I know that you have a unique vantage point, and we really, really want more voices, the quiet voices, as you said, to be out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivangi. What a pleasure to be able to speak about this. Thank you.